Well, hello there, and welcome to Last Ball Drops. And we are a little delayed, but we got here eventually. We're waiting for the last ball to drop at a challenger event rather than Wimbledon before we got underway. But I do want to say it's very privileged, as always, to be joined by the ever professional Damien Kust. How are you doing?
Ever professional, yeah. We were actually waiting. Thankfully, they managed to keep the third set pretty sharp. So we are here. We are ready. Last ball drops kinda after an hour, but yeah, it's still fresh. This is still fresh topics everywhere.
Well, I would hope so. Although we're not going to start with a super fresh topic because this did happen a few hours ago, and I am not talking about England making the semi-finals of the Euros. I am talking about who isn't going any further in a tournament, and that's Iga Swiatek, who is now out of Wimbledon at the third round stage, losing to Yulia Putintseva, who I'm gonna say I'm gonna say this now before I get Damien's thoughts. In my opinion, Putintseva won that match. She brought an insane level and was able to really take it to Swiatek and disrupt her. But I think those of us who but I guess the real question is, how big of a surprise is this result, Damien?
No, I don't know. I mean, I guess I was thinking this is kind of similar to the Soribes Tormo matchup in a way for Swiatek. Well, a little more dangerous, and also it's grass. Just that it's, you kind of just expect her to find her way somehow, even if the gritty opponent is potentially going to cause some trouble. Putintseva already had a 4-1 lead over her in Rome this year in the second set. She even had a few break points there. And then Iga comes back. So, like, for a while, that second set was actually heading in a very different direction. But sorry, was actually heading in the similar direction. But then, of course, the comeback never happens. I still think there was a lot of similarities with this and like the Cornelos, for example, or like, well, yeah, there's no adversity from Iga really in sets 2 and 3. Like, there's no fight back. There's no Naomi, attempt. There's no Roland Garros second round against Osaka attempt. But yeah, certainly I would say that Putintseva was just brutally efficient. She was just not missing anything. She was like the total difference between her in the first set and the second set, like, was night and day in terms of how she was just absorbing everything that Iga was throwing at her. There weren't any balls anymore where she was just like, too much spin, too much quality for her. Nothing like that. Like the faster, the spinnier that Iga played, the balls were coming back, even livelier then. And yeah, I do think that as a surprise, Iga was going to be a little more vulnerable at Wimbledon. I don't think I was expecting her to win Putintseva necessarily. Although, even the very next round, I think Iga would have been like a 50-50 to lose, maybe. So, I don't know. It's a shame a little bit that we're not gonna see another Swiatek Ostapenko. It's just such a fascinating head-to-head. But yeah, I mean, Putintseva was fully the deserved winner of that match. Obviously, there was no fight back attempt whatsoever in sets 2 and 3. I'm not saying Iga didn't try. I'm saying she had no idea how to do it. She literally had no idea how to get through Putintseva. And I was talking about this with someone on Twitter today, but like the moment when Iga will improve on grass is probably a year when she will have like a slightly less intense clay court season. I don't know. She loses pretty early at the French. She plays a warm up actually, and then maybe that's going to be the year when she actually gets something going on grass courts.
Yeah, I think playing a warm up will help her. I mean, she got further playing Bad Homburg last year than she did skipping whenever she skipped a warm up. Now, I think she had good reasons to skip a warm up this time round. And she's actually said in her press conference that she feels like actually she didn't take enough time off. So I think that was interesting. I did see her trying new things towards the end of the match, and she was saving match points as sort of Putitseva's level dropped a bit. But I could see that like Swiatek kind of stopped overplaying and tried to be a bit more patient, but I think it was a little bit too late by that point. But even then, like I could see Putintseva just basically just went for her shots still, and it was working. So I was just basically sat there and being more amazed by what Putintseva was producing than frustrated with Swiatek's attempts. If that makes any sense, I think that's kind of how I read the match. And this isn't the first time that Putinseva's done this on grass, and she's famously beat Naomi Osaka on grass before, about 5 years ago in Birmingham, right? So it's
I
not
mean,
her first world number one win.
there's no world when beating Naomi Osaka on grass is famous, I think.
Well, it is now. There's a comparison there.
Mm, mm. I mean, Putintseva had never been past the second round at Wimbledon before this year. But yeah, she just came out of the most dangerous section. Like she beat the Wimbledon champion Kerber, Siniakova, who won Bad Homburg last year, and now Swiatek. So of course, yeah. And as you said, also you pointed out that she was still kept going for her shots. Absolutely, it was like a very proactive type of defense rather than just sitting there and trying not to miss.
Yeah. So yeah, so Putintseva is through. Iga is out. I mean, does this massively change how you see the kind of the landscape of the women's tournament now, with her not being in the draw?
I think the women's tournament was very open to begin with. Uh, I don't know if the percentages were quite, high enough for the favorites that even if one of them lose, I mean, even if you have someone like Rybakina who's looking really good or Golf, we still expect that they might just lose in the next round, and our world will not like collapse if they do. If Navarro stops Golf and Kalinskaya stops Rybakina, Marketa Vondroushova won this title last year. I mean, yeah, I think it was just way too open for that one favorite to be like a big difference maker. I saw someone on Twitter saying that this is now Golf's tournament to lose. I think that's, well, taking it a bit too far, especially considering Rybakina is in the event. But
Yeah,
well, these two are now the main two favorites. I guess before today we had three main favorites.
we did. I was going to do Putinseva's opponent next, but I think now you've mentioned her, we should probably talk about Rybakina because she demolished Caroline Wozniacki. She dropped one game, and Wozniacki was fighting to hold serve the entire match. Even when Rybakina was having dodgier service games, she had no trouble serving her way out. And it was, I think this was one of those days where Rybakina's game clicked. And when it clicks on grass, nothing can stop her. And yeah, I've been seeing the similar things with Goff. People saying that this is now Goff's tournament. I'm like, hello, former champion Elena Rybakina is still in the draw, and she just had a statement win. And obviously, for me, going into the tournament, she was the title favorite, and I think she still is.
Yeah, I think she was my title favorite as well. I think I had like a Rybakina Keys final or something like that. But yeah, sure. I mean, 6-love, 6-1 is kind of scary. It was a very clear matchup in terms of like who's gonna attack, who's gonna defend. On grass, it's gonna be hard for Caroline to get these errors. I mean, for years we've had her kind of struggling to win her first slam. Of course, she eventually did, but it's been really tough for like defense first players to do it in recent years. And I think matches like this kind of show you why, because well, she just had nothing to do there. Like she hit like what, 4 winners in the entire match. In the previous matches, sometimes like when she had time, she actually was showing some, let's say, like more positively oriented tennis than in her prime even. I think, but yeah, against Rybakina it just didn't apply whatsoever. It's a rough day. I mean, on some other day, I think this match could have been a bit closer. Obviously, Rybakina not the most consistent player in the world either. We saw what happened around Garros when she was also looking great, and then she makes 50 errors. But on grass, most of the time, probably Wozniacki doesn't have much to look for against Rybakina.
Yeah, and I think if Rybakina's first serve percentage had dropped, she made a few more errors. Wozniacki had a chance, but yeah, she was just too good today. And again, I want to actually get your thoughts on this. I think Rybakina's base level on grass is incredibly high, and it's going to take a lot to beat her even on an off day for me, just because of their big serve, flat strokes. Um, I think it's going to take an effort from someone. We saw it with Ons last year.
Yeah, I mean, from time to time, I guess she might fall into trouble, but half the time she's gonna like get out of this with the serve. Yeah, so like the serve alone, I think, is a big difference maker. Yeah, in terms of how much easier it can be for her to come, sort of, yeah, just overcome day when she's not finding her A game. And whereas at the French, she didn't really have a way of doing that. Here, she can just serve her way out, maybe out of some sort of a sticky situation. So yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I still wouldn't be surprised if she loses to Kalinskaya. This is a definitely like a different matchup in terms of she will actually she will be under pressure at least for some chunks of it. But that's mostly also, yeah, because I think no one in the draw really has that sort of invulnerable, aura or anything like that. So
Mm.
but she's probably the closest to it along with Goff. So
Yeah, I mean, they have to be like they are the current in the league of four players that kind of set the tone and the form, and everyone's watching. And it's basically if they go out, then it's anyone's game right now. And obviously, no Sabalenka the tournament. Iga's now out. That's it's something. All eyes are on those two, and obviously we're talking about it wouldn't be a surprise if either of them lost, which I agree with to a certain extent. But I am kind of looking forward to the possibility of them playing each other in the final because they haven't played each other in 2 years. They haven't played each other since they both kind of elevated themselves over the last sort of year or two. And I'm very interested to see how that dynamic would play out.
would be cool. I still feel like it's a bit of a too much of a fairy tale to think that both of them will make it. But I can sort of spin it around a little bit and say that I will be surprised if in the final we have none of these. Like if both of them don't make it, I will be surprised. I think one of them will be in the final. Which one?
Mhm.
Let's find out.
Let's find out. I mean, I did think before the draw, when the draw came out, I looked at it and I went, "This is prime for none of the top four in the final." To be honest, because
Hmm.
um, Sabalenka, Rybakina, and Swiatek all had kryptonite players in their sections. I refer to kryptonite players as people who have bad head to heads with, or people who could threaten them. Goff didn't initially, but then when she going through the second week, potentially she becomes more vulnerable. So I could see that scenario playing out where none of the four of them ended up winning the title based on the draw that came out.
Yeah, I mean, Arena kind of disappeared from the event. I know we actually talked about this before, I think, about the Vekic head to head and how I didn't really care about it whatsoever. But yeah, of course, we'll never know now. Ostapenko head to head, though, I would have cared about it. Yeah, I mean, I think that one is more relevant.
Yeah, well, it is relevant, and like part of me is kind of relieved that Iga's not now at risk of going 5-0 down in that head-to-head because on grass we would be favouring Ostapenko in that matchup.
I think so, yeah. I mean, odds-wise, Swiatek would have been the favorite, but definitely not as much as she was at the US Open, and kind of in like the common sense, sort of, yeah, in terms of like common sense, I think Ostapenko would have been the favorite. I mean, the first 3 rounds, she just sprinted past.
Yes, and actually, let's talk about Ostapenko because she dismissed Bernarda Pera. I mean, dismissed in as much of a way as Ostapenko can dismiss people. She was still very up and down, and her level wasn't enough to kind of keep Pera pushed down because when Ostapenko was going, she had way too much for Pera to deal with. But she does, as Ostapenko does, have these dips that let Pera break her a couple of times. So yeah, it was. But credit to her, she's found some consistency after kind of going a bit AWOL over the last sort of 4 months or so.
Yeah, I mean, the way you said it, it kind of sounded as if she lost like 8 or 9 games and she lost
No,
4. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, of course, it wasn't like the most spotless performance ever. But I think as a whole, the first 3 rounds, regardless of who she played, because she really hasn't had it. Well, I mean, Tomljanovic actually, she
Tomjanovic
just made
could have been a problem
she just
if
made a
Tomjanovic
final.
was.
Yeah, she just made a final on grass court. So I guess we can sort of mention her as the biggest name of these 3 players that she beat. And it wasn't generally like the tough. It wasn't like the Putin Seva draw, for example. But yeah, just for Ostapenko with her last few months and just to get that sort of 3 easy wins, not much happening really from start to finish. You're gonna win, or rather, people watching know you're gonna win. Really, that's something. Well, it's not something new to her, but it's something that's coming back to her. And I don't know, maybe it was the Swiatek matchup sort of looming as well that was firing her up. Who knows? Against Putintseva, such a weird contrast of styles, right? I mean, you never really know what's going to
I
happen in a
kind of
match like
want to see,
this.
because that match has the potential to be so wonderfully messy and dramatic. And like, I know that maybe we talk about sort of the quality of the match in terms of the quality of hitting, but I love myself a little bit of just drama sometimes. And I think we might get that. It depends if both of them are fired up or
Yeah,
not.
it has a lot of potential for sure, be it quality, be it drama. And they are two of the most sort of like interesting, quirky characters on the tour as well. I'm not really sure what their personal relationship is like, how their previous clashes went in that sense, but they also tend to be like involved in some sort of situations, maybe like
There was a
Putintseva
match
had with
they had, I
Swiatek
forget
in
where
India,
it.
was good. Yeah.
I
Hmm.
think they had a match, I can't remember when it was, where there was some
Yeah, I mean, I can believe that. They played 4 times. I checked that head to head today. I think there was Indian Wells in there, 2020 something. There was Cincinnati, 2019, I think. Oh, something else. Beijing as well, and something. But yeah, I can definitely believe that, yeah, without knowing the individual example.
if anyone does remember the individual example, please let us know. Um, and actually, I was going to talk about dramatic matches, and we actually did have a kind of a fiery match today, even though it was in straight sets. Collins Haddad Maya, Collins winning 6-4, 6-4. The full-on Danimal was unleashed, and actually, she gave a post-match interview saying that Haddad Maya poked the bear. And it kind of came out. She was very much asserting herself on court. She did go 4-love down. There was a rain delay. She won the next 7 games. Then Haddad Maya made it more of a competitive second set where it was a bit more back and forth, and there was a lot of celebrating and fist pumping from both. But in the end, Danielle Collins maybe just found that extra motivation to get the job done and make her way into the Wimbledon last 16 for what will be the only time in her career, given that this is her last Wimbledon. But yeah, big result for Collins. Very much fired up, and I enjoyed watching it when I think it was on during one of your Challenger matches. But yeah, maybe not a huge surprise that Collins at this point, but maybe a surprise it's taken her this long.
Yeah, I mean, she's never really done anything on grass, but yeah, this year she's playing that fearless tennis. I was thinking she's like on upset alert the first few rounds. She beat some very dangerous opposition, I think, both in the case of Towson and Galfi. And of course, today, yeah, just what a weird encounter. How that Maya 4-love up, and then it's not even that Daniel won the next 7 games. Like, it's the fact that from 0-4 to 6-4, like she was barely dropping points even, and that was definitely quite surprising. I mean, Halat Maya totally losing the plot there, but then she actually made it. But there were a few matches, of course, today which were sort of like rain delays. They were kind of like the star of the show, if you may, and this one is probably the most important one because after both rain delays, Haddad Maya was like gone for 20 minutes, and that basically sealed the deal.
Yeah, Hannah might take a little bit longer to get going. Collins just came out the gate firing after both rain delays. In contrast to the very start of the match, where Haddad Maya was the one who came out firing. In fact, I had something I knew I was doing last ball drops kind of today, and I don't. Ghosty's not in the chat, which is sad. But I had a in my head. I was going to be saying, like, I was seeing Iga down 4-love at one point. I was seeing or pretty heavily down. I was seeing Danielle Collins 4-love down. I was like, I'd Ghosty and I are going to be both crying in a corner at the same time for different reasons. But fair play. Collins fought back and fought her way through. And she's got Barbora Krejcikova next, who benefited from a physically hampered Jessica Bujas-Monero. She bageled her. I thought she was looking good, and then it became apparent that Bujas-Monero, while trying to fight for that match, was having a physical problem and ended up retiring. I think it was her back, maybe it was around that area that was the problem. And so, Krejcikova, again, another player who's been struggling to find some consistency, has now found it at Wimbledon and is back in the second week.
Yeah, I think Krejcikova was just in that first round match with Kudermetova where they played like 3 hours, and both of them were in the same position. Where like whoever wins that actually has a really nice draw opening up. It's just about being able to take it after such struggles with form. Krejcikova won that horrible mess of a match, and she is in the second week. I thought it was gonna be Kudermetova, but of course, they went pretty much all the way until the end. So not much wrong there as well. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, Collins Krejcikova does sound like a mismatch to me still at the moment.
Yeah, I guess to me, based on that, Collins would be the favourite for that match to go through. And let's face it, whoever comes through the section's in a very good position. Whoever end up in the quarterfinals. Going back to that Krejcikova Kudermetova match. I mean, I was actually at Wimbledon on the day that they played. I think it was the Wednesday, and they were all like, it was when everything was kind of all at the same time. And I was looking at the order of play and going, do I go to Kudermetova Krejcikova or do I go to Svitolina versus Linette? I chose Svitolina versus Linette, and I feel vindicated in that decision.
Tebeha, there was no wrong choice, I guess, right? With this, I mean, both
No,
matches
but
were very
Svitolina Linette was actually
entertaining.
quite a good match.
Yeah, both matches turned out to be very entertaining. One probably much better than the other quality-wise, and that. By that I mean Svitolina Linette.
Yeah, no, I was happy with that one. And someone else who'll be happy. I think we are kind of jumping around a bit, but yeah, Anna Kalinskaya coming through. We talked about her. We know she's playing Elena Rybakina in the next round, but just to mention her match, she was actually really consistent and really solid, and she did benefit from Ludmila Samsonova being very up and down in that match. A little bit inconsistent, apart from the end of the first set where Samsonova suddenly turned it up and broke back to take it to a tiebreak. But then Kalinskaya played the tiebreak much better, and Samsonova just struggled to find first serves and get the ball in the court. But that was on her service games. On Kalinskaya's service games, I felt like Kalinskaya was kind of controlling things really, really well. And it was very much more on her racket. And she was able to still be solid from the baseline and play her game, and didn't just benefit from Samsonova kind of being a bit up and down. And I was able to compete with Samsonova when Samsonova was more on and up. So I think I think that overall, Kalinskaya should be in a good place, and seems to be bucking the trend of the losing Berlin finalists kind of crashing out fairly early on in Wimbledon. Still looking pretty good.
Yeah, don't worry, Sworn, I'm not interrupting anything. It was, I think, the producer who highlighted the comment. But anyway, when I'm thinking of Kalinskaya, yeah, sure. I mean, if you're kind of put Samsonova and Rybakina against each other, like that's not a bad prep for playing Rybakina. We've had some matchups like this already at the championships this year, where like one player is this very nice early aggressive ball striker and kind of just likes taking time away, and the other is like a huge hitter, usually pretty flat as well. And yeah, I mean, she's just gonna play the same matchup again in a way, so that always helps a little bit at least. And yeah, to me, it's that sort of battle. Like again, a big serve, flat hitting, lots of power, but maybe Kalinskaya can actually take time away and at least on her serve be the dominant player. It should be really fun. I think it's a very good matchup, sort of like stylistically as well to watch. And of course, as Swarna says, she beat her, I think, on clay last year. So there's some history as well there.
I think Kalinskaya definitely has a chance of making it a match, and that's, I think, that's going to be the best women's match on, or the women's match I'd be most interesting to watch on Monday. So I'm hoping I'm not at work whilst it's on.
I'd second that. I'd second that. Yeah, I think it might be my favorite one of the entire round 4, actually.
Okay. Yeah, No, I agree with that. I get on board with that.
I could see someone making the case for Ostapenko Putintseva, as we said earlier. I could see someone making the case for Paulini Keys for sure, and I definitely could see someone making the case for Goff Navarro. But that's just Americans, I think.
Oh no, I would probably. Well, I wouldn't make it the case for it being the best match of round 4, but I'd make the case for it being potentially an interesting match. But we can get to that when we do the little bit of a look ahead. So, Ghosty is here. Yeah, you missed me kind of giving Danimal some kudos. So if you want to wind back when we're done, then go for it. There's so Rybakina is playing kind of Sky in the next round. I think the only other story really to wrap up from Wimbledon on the women's side, the big story, Ons Jabeur is also out. There will be no third Wimbledon final for her, at least this year. Elina Svitolina came out, played really well, and took her out again. Actually, kind of outcraft. I mean, I wasn't paying too much attention because it was happening at the same time as Swiatek and Putintseva. But from what I did see, I thought that Svitolina was doing very well at sort of matching Onta's craft against similar kind of flat hitting and kind of playing a slightly better grass game on the day.
Yeah, I mean, the draw was definitely quite brutal for Ons. I mean, Pegula is out now, but we imagined that she was going to have to play Jessie in round 4 and then Rybakina in the quarters, right? So, like, yeah, it wasn't going to be easy regardless. But I don't know. I mean, watching this, it kind of makes you think, has her window closed already?
I don't like to speculate on that. I hope not. I hope not. I will basically believe in a player until the point where they start losing more than they win or their body gives up. Essentially, I think that's kind of where I'm at with it. So I think the potential is still there within Ons. It's just less and less likely that's going to happen. But I still think the possibility is still there.
Yeah, I guess we can't quite say that. You're right. I mean, I'm sorry for like singling her out, and she's not the only one. But okay, I'm gonna single out someone else. Emma Raducanu won the U.S. Open in 2021. You know, Marketa Vondroushova won Wimbledon in 2023. Some crazy things happen in best of 5 and best of 3 sometimes. So yeah, I mean, sure, I can't quite say that her window is closed. Actually, yeah,
it could still happen. So yeah, we'll kind of see how Svitolina goes because I thought she played really well today, and she'll be taking on Wang Jinyu, who broke British hearts today by beating Harriet Dart. Harriet Dart, she was a setup, she was a breakup, she was a breakup in the third, but just couldn't close it out. And Wang competed with her and stayed with her through that. And I think overall, in what was a nervy match, just handled the occasion a little bit better. So I'm a little bit surprised because I didn't think she came into Wimbledon with really any grass form. So it's a surprise to me, but a good surprise to see her in the last 4.
yeah.
16. That's last 16.
Between her and Harriet Dart, I mean, it's pretty obvious who has higher upside. I think I don't think she's done much on grass before, but well, game, like, you know, if you think about it on paper, she should have some sort of game. Of course, the key win for her was the Pegula one. Today was kind of like, can you actually just, you know, deliver again against a weaker opponent, but still against an opponent who has a lot of grass experience? It's kind of like the women's version of Alex Bolt. And well, Xenia Wang managed to pull it off indeed.
She did. I think she might have a bit of an uphill struggle against Svitolina, though. I don't know if you'd agree with that.
Svitolina is next for her, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't watch Svitolina against Jabeur, so that's kind of my problem.
Yeah.
And that was supposedly a great performance from Elena. So I'm kind of still rating her based on some previous matches that I've seen, and then
Right.
that tells me, I don't know if it's that obvious. But of course, Svitolina of last year from Wimbledon, I would love to see that player again, and if indeed she's playing like that, then sure.
Okay. Well, I think Svitolina's looking to try and make some waves again at Wimbledon. Right, it looks like the chat on the live version of this has moved on to the men's, so maybe we should too. So let's talk about it. I think when the last ball dropped, it was on centre court. Novak Djokovic coming through in 4 sets against Alexei Popyrin. And it was one of those matches where we had no doubt that Djokovic was winning it, but maybe a little bit surprised that he dropped a set and that Popyrin forced a tiebreak.
I don't think so. And especially from watching it, like, did you really think that there's no chance for Popperin to win? I don't know. Djokovic so far has been in 80% mode. Again, it's like gonna be all about stepping up. But after watching both of them today, actually, and that might surprise people, but after watching both of them today, I actually am pretty convinced. Well, not pretty convinced. Okay, no, that's the stretch. But I actually believe in the Rune upset. I mean, Holger, sure, he was 2 sets to love down, but he was 2 sets to love down against a very different, like no rhythm player, great server and stuff. He was fine physically. I know there were some rain delays, but still, he was fine physically. Whereas Novak, I mean, he's always struggled with Rune, with his sort of all-court game, with how all-rounded Holger is. Like it's really been giving him trouble over the years. Of course, they've played like 5 times and he's won 3, but every single match was close. Well, the first match wasn't close, but still, like baby Holger took a set of Djokovic that day and was cramping, and that's why he lost later. But yeah, I mean, I think that Novak hasn't really shown much so far, which doesn't mean that he won't, but he will definitely need to step it up. I would also be very excited to see Alice against Djokovic. I think both matchups could have been very interesting. Holger is much more versatile, let's be honest, and maybe is going to be a bigger threat. But I was not too excited about this potential matchup when the draw came out, mostly because I was thinking Alice might get there or someone else for instead of Rune, and I don't know, just wasn't thinking of him as that much of a threat to Novak. But now I actually am. Now I think that will be surely the best match of round 4 on the men's side.
Before we move on to Rune, I do want to make the point that I'm struggling to see the difference between the way Djokovic typically makes his way through Wimbledon draws in the latter part of his career with this knee issue compared to when he's done it previously.
I think the
Because
issue
he
is
kind
the
of gets
whole
to an
year,
80% mode as well.
isn't it? Like, I think that the issue is the whole year.
Yeah.
Some of his footwork as well, covering the forehand corner, has been a little off. I mean, obviously he might be like a little bit more cautious with his knee, but yeah, I think the difference is the entire year, and then simply father time, kind of moving along.
Yeah, maybe, but at the minute, I would say Djokovic going through a Wimbledon draw, specifically Wimbledon, and I do see it kind of a little bit of a vacuum given his history with the tournament. It's not radically different to how he's progressed through those before. That being said, what I will agree with you is Holger Rune is a legitimate threat to him, and I am looking forward to seeing what Rune can do. Did you see any of that Alice match, or were you completely focused on the challenges?
Oh, Alice Rune, I was watching basically. Well, I missed some parts when I was doing the commentary for Swiatek and Putintseva. There was just one challenger final. There's going to be 4 tomorrow, but basically, yeah, I watched most of Alice Rune. I think obviously the Frenchman was dominating, but after he got that 2 sets to love lead, there weren't really that many opportunities for him besides the 4th set tiebreak, which is where it was won and lost, really. And yeah, I mean, his decision making went away in the most critical moments. There was this 3-2 passing shot he just slams into the net. There was this challenge, famous that well, no, infamous, I guess, more, that he didn't take at 4-all in the tiebreak as well. If he challenged, he would have been 5-4 up, but he didn't challenge his first serve. And yeah, I mean, he got tense in that most critical moment. and he ended up losing. But obviously, he was a real threat to Rune, and I actually think he would have been a threat to Djokovic as well. Maybe a slightly lesser one, because if we think that Novak would have played well, pretty close to his best, then just that sort of linear power usually isn't that threatening to him as someone with as much variety, as much sort of skills, as as wide a skill set as Holger has.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think Holger will be able to make Djokovic move. I mean, Holger is showing himself to be a relentless competitor over best of five. I mean, we saw that at Roland Garros the last couple of years as well. Yeah, I think he was looking good by the end. I don't think he's going to struggle too much physically from this match. And yeah, as we've said, I think in conditions that are also pretty fast, he's challenged Djokovic, so it'd be interesting to see whether he can expose Novak's movement. But yeah, that was a good win for Holger. He definitely earned that victory, even though Hallis did make some mistakes in critical moments. I think Holger was kind of putting the pressure on as well.
I don't know. I mean, 3-2 up in the that fourth set tiebreak. Alice had a point. Like literally, he could have been 5-2 up with ease. He was instead just 4-3, and it would have been 5-2 and 2 serves as well. And yeah, that's kind of it. And then not challenging that serve. Yeah, he got super tense in that tiebreak. But it's true that after going up 2-0, like that was literally the one opportunity he had. There wasn't anything on the Rune serve in sets 3, 4, or 5 really that he could have capitalized on.
Yeah. So Rune is through, and yeah, I'm agreeing with you. Probably the most interesting match of the fourth round. And again, I'm expecting that probably to be an evening match on centre court. I would hope, because then I can see it on Monday. All right. Well, I think that I've seen some people in the chat mentioning Lorenzo Musetti, or at least one person mentioning Musetti earlier, and he got through in 4 sets. I'm not massively surprised. I thought he would actually make the most of the draw that he had, and maybe even make the quarters. I wasn't super high on Korda making it, but so far he's proving me right. But he might have a tough challenge coming up in Pesci Pericard, who got through in 4 sets as well, being the officially a lucky loser in the 4th round. But given where he's ranked at, and given the surge that he's been having in his career recently, maybe not a massive surprise.
Yeah, someone is talking about Musetti upset in the chat. Like, will Musetti even be the underdog? I mean, will Pesci Pericard even be the underdog against Musetti? Like,
I think by ranking,
really
yes,
close.
but if you watch tennis, probably not.
No, I mean, like betting wise, I haven't checked it, but like I would assume that it's gonna be very close. They played recently, of course, in Stuttgart. It was 7-6 to 7-6-9, 7-6-9 twice, which was basically well, just a total surface. Pesci Pericard was actually the only guy who had to save breakpoints. He saved 8 of them. Musetti didn't have to fend off any. I think on Wimbledon it's actually going to be easier for Pesci Pericard to make any damage on return, and maybe easier in general, because like if it's a bit slower, he's actually going to have some chances on return while he's still going to be unbreakable. And yeah, today I think Pesci Pericard played much better than against Korda. Against Korda, it was just everything was just so low margin of the ground. He was just slamming. Basically, he kind of survived that match based on, of course, his serve, but also the crazy half volleys and just how good his touch at the net was. Whereas today he was actually moving very well too, and then extending points by the virtue of his athleticism improving as much as it did this year. So yeah, I mean, this is definitely a scary prospect for Musetti, and that quarter in general is so open. Like if you're telling me right now that Giovanni Pesci Pericard will be in the semis of that slam, I mean, yeah, it's really no surprise if that happens. So it's super open. And with Musetti, I mean, he's kind of made hard work of this fourth round run, but I mean, it was kind of the expectation, or at least the third round was the expectation, at least. So he's gotten there. He's kind of made hard work of it, though. But this still kind of paints the picture, right, of Musetti being so consistent on grass the last 2 years.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with you on that. That he has made hard work of it. I think he nearly went 2 sets left down in his opening match. So um, so yeah, but like Musetti on grass, I think with his variety, it can work quite well. And yeah, I'm interested to see how that one will play out. But you're right, and Pesci Pericard coming through this section wouldn't be a huge surprise. Although I'm looking at the live chat and like apparently you've got some. You're not a big fan of Pesci Pericard.
No, it's not true. I mean, Keen was
Okay.
saying that in the chat, I think, and John picked it up.
Right. Okay, so it's nonsense. I did think that because I'm pretty sure I have heard you being complimentary about him before, so I was confused.
I mean, that doesn't mean you like someone, but yeah, I mean, I don't really have any beef or the other way around with him. I've seen him play live, but I haven't actually interacted with him in any way.
All right, well, that's going to be an interesting one to deal with. I can certainly see the ball being quite low in how that match plays out. But yeah, I wanted to cover that section now. And obviously, we're talking about this being an open section because we had very little confidence that the established seeds in that section were going to make it. The established seeds being Zverev, Tsitsipas, and Rublev. But Zverev is still in the tournament by the last 16 stage. And maybe that's because he's been a bit fortunate that Jack Draper didn't capitalize on his momentum going into the tournament. Cameron Norrie tried to take it to a fourth set. It was a bit of an epic tiebreak in the third set that everyone kind of got into, but in the end, Zverev kind of got through that. But yeah, at the minute, we're going into the last 16 with Zverev still being in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's done it without dropping a set definitely is kind of impressive. I mean, he's played Norrie, Giron. Okay, no one elite. We're still gonna get like more out of that Fritz round 4. We're gonna get more info out of it, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm convinced yet. But given what sort of section we're talking about, sure, you can make the semis easy. Like it really, again, everyone in that section right now can make the semis. I wonder how it's gonna be with Taylor. I really have no clue. I saw that they played twice at Wimbledon. 2021 was the last one though, so you could kind of imagine that Taylor has improved on grass since Zverev probably has not. And in general, of course, I mean he's very stiff. He's not really like inventive. He's passive off the ground. Like these aren't things that work too well on grass. So I would still put Taylor as the favorite over him on grass, but it's not by that large a margin, I suppose. And yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that Zverev has made it without dropping a set. But given that his main threat was out before they had to play, so Jack Draper, then I'm not surprised he made it. It's just not dropping a set against the likes of Norrie, Giron. That's something new.
I mean, normally I would agree with you, but aren't players like definitely Giron and maybe even Norrie, aren't they bigger threats to him on grass?
I mean, than on other surfaces, yes, but that's not really because they are that much better on grass. I mean, they're fine on grass, obviously. They are also fine on hard courts. They're also fine. Well, I mean, Norrie is at least fine on clay, but mostly because he is weaker. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, and like today, it felt like Norrie was just trying to keep up with Zverev. To be honest, that just seemed to be how the match felt. But which he kind of did. He kind of just got better as the match went on, but it was kind of too late by that point. It was too much of a climb back. Taylor Fritz. Now, I think I loved the tweet that you put out about him basically getting to matches in a row done like in straight sets to avoid them having to go to the next day. Because I was thinking something similar, and then I went, yeah, he's you put it much better than I could, and yeah, I'm kind of impressed by his ability to get the job done, and I'm liking how he's playing on the grass at the minute at Wimbledon.
Yeah, I mean, he won Eastbourne. Of course, that wasn't really a title that told us a lot about sort of his level or anything. But it was a weaker one, definitely. But he's done it before in terms of like winning that event, precisely that event, and getting ready for Wimbledon. I think in that fourth quarter, out of the top four seeds, sorry, third quarter, out of the top four seeds, which you mentioned three of them earlier as like these volatile, vulnerable guys. Like Fritz was the best one. Fritz was the main favorite for the semis. And well, he remains that. I mean, he is probably the guy I would favor over Mpeci Pericard or like Musetti the most. I mean, more than Zverev, definitely, in fact. And he's probably the guy I would favor slightly over Zverev as well. So he remains in that strong position, has showed us nothing. I mean, he's shown us nothing so far that would suggest that he shouldn't be considered that. And yeah, it's a fun story for sure. Yeah, 91 minutes against Chris O'Connell. O'Connell coming back from an injury, but still. And today, especially, I mean, it was despite being close, despite these sets being close, it was still a rapid match. And twice he's managed to do it, which maybe doesn't sound like that big a deal. Even maybe it's just like sounds like a quirky fact, but it really helps you for the rest of the event that he can actually enjoy these days off and not worry about finishing the match on the other day. So I think it's actually really helpful that he's done that.
I think it's helpful for him that, yes, you say for his recovery. I think it's also helpful for him in terms of his confidence. He has basically kept people at bay. Like Tabio was trying to hang with him and couldn't. O'Connell didn't have much of a hope by the look of the scoreline. I didn't watch the match. But yeah, I agree with you that Fritz is the favourite to come out this section and reach the semis. And he kind of has been for me since the start of the tournament. And the way he's been playing has kind of been backing that up. So, hey, look, I'm here for it. I'm here for Taylor Fritz doing well. It's going to come down to how he handles the occasion against Zverev on a big stadium on Monday.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of. If he beats Zverev, I would really believe that he can make the semis, much more easily than Zverev would. So, yeah, sure. I mean, tomorrow, well, not tomorrow, but in 2 days, there's going to be a huge day for Taylor Fritz for sure. And even let's imagine that Novak is losing to Rune or to Deminor, which I don't know, maybe it's possible. And then Taylor can start thinking about the final. Like, yeah, it's a massive slam potentially for Taylor. And it feels like he is kind of overdue. Jane was saying that in the chat, and I would agree with that.
All right. Well, I know we're probably. Let's just run through some other results. The good news is for this half of the draw was finished. Artur Fils came from 2-1 down to beat Roman Safulin, and this is his first last 16 of a slam. Right, it's the first time he's made second week. So big result for Artur. Does have a bit of a test coming up against Diminor, who didn't have to play Luca Pui in the end because Pui pulled out ahead of the match. And yeah, at the minute, I would say, although good result for Fils, I'm backing Diminor to come through that one.
Yeah, unfortunately, I would love to see an even bigger run from Fils, from Pecci Pericard. Just what a great story as well for the two French talents to sort of have their slam breakthrough at one event. They are probably the two biggest French talents right now. I mean, some other guys like De Bruyne or Van Asch have kind of, well, their progress has stagnated, especially De Bruyne probably, but Van Asch as well. I think, it's clear that he's not going to be as explosive as Fils or Pecci Pericard. It's just that, yeah, I mean, even though Arthur defeated Deminor this year already, but that was on clay. And on grass courts, it's going to be 10 times harder. It's going to sort of like require perfect application, perfect execution of his game. He usually doesn't have that. Today he also probably made it a bit more of a mess than he had to. But some of the tennis he's played this slam is definitely just extremely convincing in terms of his ability to step it up as well on other surfaces. Obviously the talent is there. It's just kind of about, I don't know, peaking at the right time, not having these dips. And I don't know. I'm excited to watch the match. I think it's possible for him to win, but he just needs to, like, for 3 sets, he needs to be executing his game like that. And that's tough, especially against someone like Deminor, who's joined the elite and is also such a solid competitor.
Especially on grass right now. Dimino on grass is usually a very dangerous combination. If Diminor's kind of heads in the game. I'm aware that there were some matches that were carried over from yesterday that also need to be completed. I think for the sake of time, what I'm going to do is we can talk about those when we're previewing tomorrow's order of play. I think that's going to be the easiest thing to do. So we'll start off with Centre Court tomorrow, which starts with Carlos Alcaraz against Hugo Humbert, then Lulu Sun against Emma Raducanu, and then Emma Navarro against Coco Gauff. So I think I don't know how we usually kind of break these down, whether we kind of go individually, but I guess we'll do Alcaraz Humbert. Humbert gets the job done in the tie break, isn't on court very long today. That's going to help him out a lot. Does he pose any kind of threat to Carlos? I've seen some suggestions that maybe him playing quite quick might have an opportunity to disrupt Carlos, but I'm thinking Alcaraz should be able to move him around a fair bit and use his weapons quite effectively.
And Humbert has a phenomenal game for the grass. Just how flat he plays again, and generally any slicker, faster surface, he's gonna be very dangerous at. All in all, I mean, it's still a match where, like, you've got a pretty volatile underdog and a very consistent favorite, and you've got a match in the best of 5 format, and that's kind of how I'm looking at it. Like, Humbert can definitely take a set of Alcaraz. Maybe he'll take 2, but can he actually snatch 3? It is somewhat unlikely, but I see the appeal of that match, definitely. I just kind of expect Carlos to move over, move through regardless and somehow find a way, even if there's issues. The way he played against Tiafoe, I would suspect that might be his worst performance of the fortnight.
Okay. Yeah, you think he might wake up after that match? That's like that was his wake up call almost.
Somewhat. I mean, I just think if you have a slam and you have 7 matches, there's always going to be a day when you're not at your sharpest. And of course, if that day appears, it might also suggest that maybe something is wrong with your form or something like that. I don't know. I kind of, so far at least, read it as, okay, that was probably the worst performance he's going to have.
Okay. I probably would agree with that. I guess there's going to come down to whether the people he plays are going to bring something to challenge him, and we can talk about that as and when he moves through opponents. But right now, we could see Humbert winning a set, but maybe not. But let's see how the match progresses. We're expecting Carlos to be a bit better. I think the following match, I have not seen any of Lulu Sun this tournament. I haven't watched any of her matches. So I can't comment on how much of a threat she's going to be to Emma Raducanu. But from my understanding with the way Raducanu's been playing, I think she would have to be very hampered by nerves to not win that, unless there's something about Sun that I've not seen. Like, she's got some weapons that I'm not aware of that could end British dreams unexpectedly.
Yeah, I don't really buy into that. Like, sure, pressure can be high. There's also that wrist injury potentially, but personally, I would suspect that withdrawal is more about the singles rather than her like being afraid of aggravating it. I don't know, but that's speculation, obviously. But yeah, in any case, Emma is basically in the quarterfinals. That's how we think about that. I mean, let's be honest. That's how we think about that. If Lulu-san pulls it off, fantastic. If she doesn't, it's gonna be like massive disappointment, and you can just imagine all the British tabloids going crazy. because that's kind of where we are. Like, she's been playing well enough the last 2 rounds that people already have her in the quarters. And, well, I mean, we'll see.
I mean, I kind of had her in the quarters before the tournament, to be honest. So it was a little bit optimistic on my part, but
I mean, she was playing Alexandrova in round 1, and I picked Alexandrova to the quarters. So
I decided that Alexandrova wasn't playing well enough to. I thought she might be vulnerable. I might not be able to execute. So
horrible
end, she
matchup for
went
Emma, I
over.
think. So she's pretty lucky to
Yeah.
to not
I
to
think
not
this is the way difference between you and I make predictions is that I don't look at matchups very much. I only look at results and
I mean, yeah,
like.
but if it's round 1, I mean, you kind of have to, right?
No, I kind of go with previous tournament results over it.
I mean, I don't know. It's Alexandrova on grass.
It's not anyway.
It's Alexandrova on grass.
But this is what I'm saying. Like, we have a different way of looking at it. I go with what does the spreadsheet tell me from like how many match wins they've got leading into it, and then if it's pretty even, then I'll look at the matchup. It's just interesting the different ways we look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you have a spreadsheet as well, and like you probably care a bit more. I'd say I probably just brush my finger off at my phone, whatever.
I mean, look, it's not helped me that far because I've got 7 out of 16 correct in the women's draw, but it sounds like everyone's women's draw's been a bit of a mess.
I haven't checked.
Tangent anyway. I mean, actually, you are probably the best person to ask because obviously I have seen some comments about Raducanu already in the live chat. You not being British means you don't have any skin in the game. Do you think the reaction that there's been an overreaction to her pulling out of the mixed doubles with Andy Murray?
I think it's very understandable. I can imagine the same in Poland. Let's say the situation happens in Poland, and of course, it's not like Murray and Raducanu, but it's whoever and whoever. I
It's
think the
Iga
reaction.
Swiatek in like 10 years or 15 years with some new Polish guy who comes on the scene.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be her last match or something like that, and it's in Poland, and he pulls out. Yeah, it's kind of the way I think about this is, if someone in Poland, like, we treat the Olympics very important, just in general representing the country, or like there's the overreaction whenever Iga withdraws from Beijing King Cup. So yeah, I think the reaction that I see is very understandable. Personally, I have zero like emotional interest in Emma withdrawing or not from that match. When I see that withdrawal and I sort of know what I think about her potential in the singles draw and how she is almost in the quarterfinals already, has potentially a decent matchup for herself in that quarterfinal as well. My natural instinct is to think, okay, she probably is just withdrawing because she wants to focus on singles. But I understand how that can rub some people the wrong way. And that's how they are treating it. They wanted to see Mari one more time. And yeah, I have zero emotional engagement in this, but I think the entire reaction is understandable to me. Yes.
And I think it's coming from many Andy Murray fans because I agree with you. And to be honest, I think if there was the opportunity for someone to progress in the singles, I think that should be the priority. Trust me, and I'm not saying this is likely, but if Emma Raducanu is holding the Venus Rosewater dish this time next week, the press will not care that she pulled out from it. The people won't care as much that she pulled out from the mixed doubles. And it's kind of reminding me a little bit, I mean, very different circumstances because none of these people are British. In 1999, Steffi Graf was playing mixed with John McEnroe. John McEnroe came out of retirement to play mixed with her. And then she pulled out because she ended up reaching the final of the women's singles and she knew she wasn't fully fit. She was nearing the end of her career. I think it was pretty much almost her. She only played one more tournament in her career after Wimbledon. She knew she was nearing the end and she wanted to be as fit as possible for the final. So she pulled out, which McEnroe said really annoyed him at the time. But for me, the logic still holds out. If you've got a chance of doing well and getting big points, you take it. So I'm not annoyed about it, especially since, if she did play with Murray and they went out on court 1 and they lost, it might have been a bit more of an anticlimax given the sort of very emotional events of Thursday night and sort of how that played out on centre court, or at least maybe risked dragging things out and in some ways kind of celebrating Andy but not knowing it was the end was almost better. But I appreciate that's probably a personal opinion. Again, you don't have skin in the game, so it's probably a bit different for you.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't have, as I said, any like engagement in this, but certainly I can understand the reactions on both ends. As the guys in the chat have been saying as well here, Matthew and Swarna, I mean, she probably shouldn't have said yes in the first place, but it seemed like a great idea. But then at some point you realize that, oh wow, I actually have a singles opportunity here. Like I have a proper chance to make a deep run here, and you kind of have to sacrifice something. And again, we don't know if that's exactly what happened. Maybe she actually has a wrist issue. Maybe she's going to be struggling with it tomorrow. Maybe we'll never find out. But yeah, I mean, me on a personal level, I have zero problem with that. But I can understand how Andy Murray fans and British tennis fans would.
Yeah. All right. I don't want to take too long over this, but I did want to kind of touch on those kind of matches because we were getting asked about them. Emma Navarro versus Coco Gauff, also being asked about that. I said earlier that I was interested in this match because they're both very defensive players, and although I think Gauff is currently maybe a bit more, has maybe a bit stronger overall. I think there's potential for there to be some quite fun long rallies in this match, and I think it's going to be interesting to see who is better able to survive in that kind of scenario. My instinct it will probably be Gauff out of those two, very likely. But for me, in terms of someone who likes to see a bit more of who enjoys watching the defensive side of the game a little bit, and seeing how people handle themselves on the baseline, I could see that being interesting for me.
Yeah, personally, I'll probably only tune in if Navarro is close. Otherwise, probably not. And yeah, I think this is, of course, their first real test for Coco. She hasn't really played an elite opponent before this week. And we know that her floor in general is very high, and she kind of just smashes everyone who's not in the top 50 of the court, somewhat similarly to Iga Świątek. But in different styles, but still somewhat similarly. And yeah, this is the first opponent who's not in that group. This is the first opponent who's actually a threat to her. So I'm excited to see how she handles that. Probably will only tune in if Navarro is indeed competitive, which I think she should be. I mean, at least competitive, I think she will be.
Yeah, I think it's got a good chance of being competitive, and I have actually been impressed by Goff's ability to come through those matches against on top 50 opponents and be very emphatic in the way that she's done it, and it's a sign of how much she's growing at the moment. But yeah, I can see why you probably would be, tuning in to see if Emma Navarro is competitive. There's a chance of that, but I suspect you might be paying. Well, I'm assuming, unless it's clashing with one of your 4 challenger finals happening tomorrow, paying more attention to what's happening on court 1, because the last match on court 1 is, I know we're probably doing this a bit back to front, Dimitrov Medvedev. On grass, could be interesting. Obviously, Dimitrov beat Medvedev in Miami earlier this year, didn't he? Or have I remembered that wrong?
I think Dimitrov might be the favorite tomorrow. The way he's been serving has been insane. I mean, against Monfils, even though he had just played a 5-setter with Yuncheng Shang the day before, against Monfils, he's like 95% on first serve or something like that. I mean, first serve points won, obviously. I'm checking, Jane, and I don't see any new info, honestly. Only that statement that you probably saw on his Twitter and stuff, where he says that he had some first medical checkups, but he's gonna do more in Poland. So I can't help you really, at least not yet. But yeah,
That
Dimitrov,
right?
yeah, about Hurkacz. And Dimitrov Medvedev, yeah, I think that's perfectly the upset is perfectly possible. I think we were very excited for this match at the Australian Open. Of course, Grigor ended up losing to Borges. Daniil has been fine so far. He's not really telling me, I'm gonna beat Sinner. I think Dimitrov would actually have a stronger shot at Yannick in the quarters, maybe. But this should be a nice, not a free set match. And I kind of like Grigor's chances with the way he's been serving and also how he can neutralize with the slice. Slice in general, one of the best ways to play Daniil. I definitely am excited for that matchup. Should be very fun to watch. And I do feel like we missed this at the Australian Open.
Yeah, yeah, I think this could be an interesting one. I agree. I think Dimitrov has a very good chance of beating Medvedev. I think actually I probably do have him beating Medvedev in my bracket, maybe. But yeah, I agree with you. Dimitrov looking good. I mean, Medvedev maybe made a bit more work than necessary against Struff, but yeah, got the job done today in the end. But yeah, Dimitrov looking pretty positive, and it'd be interesting to see how they've both played on court one this tournament, so that should even things out in terms of no need to worry about one of them not being used to the conditions. Jumping to the top of the order, Jasmine Paolini versus Madison Keys, who you did mention before as a potentially interesting match, which I'd agree with. Both losing Eastbourne semi-finalists. I before the tournament, I've been giving the edge to Keys, and certainly I like the way Keys has been progressing through this draw. But Paolini's showing that actually she can play on grass and play pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing, let's say, a lot of hype. I've been producing a lot of hype for Madison Keys the last few months. I've been saying everywhere that like she's looking like she's gonna do something big at Wimbledon or the U.S. Open. I picked her to make the final, and I would love to think that she is going to make it easily tomorrow, but I just don't know if she will. I mean, Jasmine Paolini just seems like she's gonna be playing well regardless of where you put her right now. Like you could probably force her to play on ice or whatever surface, AstroTurf, and she would be amazing. Like that's kind of how it seems. She's playing so confident. She plays Bianca Andreescu. You think that Andreescu has so much variety in grass courts, that's going to make it easier. But no, it's actually Paulini just comes out and kind of, I don't know, plays her simple, but just a very effective game and just keeps smashing away at it, really. And yeah, when I'm seeing that sort of extreme confidence and how sort of she just believes in her game right now to the fullest possible extent, perhaps since Dubai, perhaps even since earlier than that. And it makes me question my previous assumptions regarding Madison Keys.
Yeah. So yeah, hard one to call that one. That I think that's going to be very interesting. I'm looking forward to catching that tomorrow. Sinner Shelton. There's been some hype for this in the chat, or at least I'm hyping up the hype. I mean, maybe because obviously Shelton's a big name, he's American, but Sinner's game overall is a lot more well-rounded, and if he off the ground, I would expect him to be winning pretty much 90% of the rallies. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it still felt like a real possibility in Shanghai. Obviously, it was. Does it feel like a real possibility now in the best of 5 format? I don't really think so. I think Ben played his best match of the event by far today, but he might be knackered by the time he gets to Yannick. And I think, yeah, he has a great upset potential every single time, really, with his playstyle, because, like, yeah, he can make it random against anyone. But I just don't know if, best of 5 format and after the 3-5 setters, I don't believe it. I'm not gonna lie, I don't believe in the upset whatsoever. I think Yannick came through that second round, which was, of course, very, very crucial. Given that he was playing a guy who I think was in the top 10 of my power rankings, if I made it. And yeah, I just think that was really a key round for him, and now he's gonna enjoy himself for the next few rounds until the semis, probably, if Alcaraz makes it there, and then it becomes like a thing. But yeah, I can't say I give Shelton any shot tomorrow. I literally don't know how he's gonna win this. If he was fresh, maybe. There's always that little chance with Ben. That's what we were saying in Australia as well, right? Because he was on collision course with Novak in the fourth round. Of course, it didn't happen because he lost to Manarino, but But yeah, he always has a chance against the top guys. But after 3 consecutive 5-setters, I think that always suddenly isn't really applicable.
Yeah, especially if, I would be shocked if Ben pulled off a straight sets win. So, minute he loses this set, the harder it's going to get. So, yeah, I think he'll get some highlight reel shots in. I think, but I think Sinner will probably be overall too strong. So I think we're on the same page there. And then just to wrap up, the number 2 court singles, and then has a mixed doubles match after. But the number 2 court singles is Badosa Vekic and then Paul Bautista Agut. Do you have any thoughts on either of those matches that you wanted to kind of put out there?
Not really. I mean, I think Badosa Vekic is another one of these, like, well, actually, no, both of them are from that type of like very good aggressive ball strikers, both very good on grass. I think Paula probably has the stronger upside, but she also wasn't involved in a tough battle with Kasatkina. I don't know how much that has taken away from her in terms of the fuel tank. I kind of have this theory that she might beat Vekic and then lose to Raducanu and, kind of run out of it in the quarters. She also seems to be a pretty decent matchup for Emma, I think. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's pretty open, and Tommy Paul probably will just beat Bautista Agut. Like, it will take him 3.5 hours, but he'll beat him, and we will never actually stop and think, oh, maybe Roberto is winning this. The reality is that he's probably gonna be a bit tired, and just in general, I mean, beating someone who he has to outgrind again after doing it to Fonini. I don't know if I trust it at this stage of his career. Although, of course, he's a fantastic grass courter. But seems like Tommy will actually have that, energy of a younger person, and like that will actually be one of the biggest parts of that match. We already had one Paul Bautista Agut clash at the slams, right? And Roberto Bautista Agut was like, yeah, I mean, he just literally didn't have enough left, and I think this might be similar.
Yeah, I think so too. I think our thoughts on both those matches are very similar. I'm heavily favouring Tommy Paul in that match, and the Badosa Vekic match could go either way. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I think that's a great way to open play in terms of TV. Depending on
Because it will be a noon, not later in the day, right?
Yeah, that's right. So yeah. It will probably be the only singles match happening. Obviously, there's lots of doubles happening as well, but that doesn't get a lot of attention. But there's although I will say there are lots of really good doubles matches around, but we don't necessarily have time to preview all of those. All right, I think it's a good time to wrap up because it's about midnight my time. It's 1 a.m. for you, and I know you've got other things to do, Damien. So thanks for kind of running through today's action and looking forward to tomorrow. I'm not 100% sure what the plans are in terms of commentaries, but keep an eye on the channel, and yeah, I'm sure something will pop up, and we do have another last ball drops tomorrow as well. I guess, Damien, do you have any final thoughts on anything you wanted to share from today?
Yeah, not really. I guess that tomorrow is not going to be the Rune Djokovic day, so it's probably actually the women's action that's kind of more important tomorrow than the men's for me. But yeah, I will definitely keep an eye on at least, Sinner Shelton still, despite not believing in the upset because it's just such a flashy matchup. And also Dimitrov Medvedev does seem like a bit of a cracker, sure.
Yeah, Alcaraz Humbert, not worth paying attention to.
I'll kind of probably use the similar strategy to Goff Navarro, where like if it's
Yeah.
close, I'll turn it on. But yeah, also tomorrow 4 challenger finals. 2 of them actually will also be playing the semifinals on the same day in Brasov and in
Wow.
Karlsruhe. So I guess I'll be pretty busy with some other stuff as well. So it might be a day of let's say a mixture of Wimbledon action and challengers for me. But well, that's Sundays.
Yeah. By the way, Jane, thank you so much for the $5. Really appreciate it. As always, you don't have to do that, but it's nice to know that you appreciate what we do here so much. Those of you who may have joined midway through, don't worry, we did talk about all the women's action before. We started off with talking about Iga Swiatek losing to Yulia Putintseva. We probably didn't go into super detail, but I imagine you're going to cover a lot of that kind of chat and kind of the debrief in the Iga and Carlos show with Vanch at some point when that comes out.
Yeah, we actually will be recording today probably. So
Are
yeah.
you going to sleep?
Well, I mean, soon, right after this. Yeah.
Okay. Well, try and get some sleep. I would love to give Damien a hug, Ghosty, but and for $5, I'll give anyone a hug. But I will. I think you can accept. You can hug him yourself. I look at it. It looks like Damien would want that anyway from his reaction. But thank you also for the $5. All right, I think we'll wrap up there. So keep an eye on the channel for all now next commentaries, and another episode of Last Ball drops tomorrow. And at some point, I'll see you. Till then, take care and keep talking tennis.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.